Here's the grid. Nick Alexander is on your pole position. Mike Stoner P2, Alexandros P3, Steve Rubens 4th, Andrew Sexton 5th, Tom Jenkinson 6th, Frick in 7th, Terry Titus in 8th, John Cox 9th, Colin Ward 10th, Alex Smith 11th. Green lights are on, Luke Power 12th. As lights are on, we're on board for the second race of this evening in the F3 car. And here we go, it's lights out and away we go. Green light as they head down to the first sparse swooping corner, as it does seem for the Van Hayden livery there, gets side by side with Nick in P1, and as he goes, he loses a couple of positions as he gets onto the grass there. Very, very close behind, as always a couple of cars into the gravel at the start here. Thankfully, they're all survived, but it does seem that Alexandros there in the anime livery we was admiring before this race began, unfortunately on the gravel is not, has fallen down the pack here as Mike Stoner has got a nice lead here as cars are going side by side through that hairpin. There's contact behind, there's smoke behind, parts flying up in the air. James Gill, unfortunately, has been caught up in that incident and has fallen down to the back of the pack, I wonder, and Nick Alexander as well. Let's have a look at a replay. There's lots of lockups there, as it seems James Gill was turned around by the Rothmans livery. Seems to be that his car's intact, but unfortunately he is now down at the back of the pack. Will be looking to make up as many positions as he can, potentially get a reverse pole for the last race of this evening in the Super Formula car. But it is Mike Stoner, your leader, just under a second ahead of Tom Jenkinson in P2, Steve Rubens in P3, Alex Smith, who's looking for a race of recovery after a poor showing out, no fault of his own, though, in the first race, is in P4, Andrew Sexton in 5th, Frick in 7th, John Cox in 7th, Terry Titus 8th, Stephen Williams in 9th, Carl Power in 10th, making up, who finished second in the first race of this evening and started 19th. He's up 10 positions, in P9. 10 minutes 10th. Luke Power also making up a few positions in 11th as well. Danny Henney biding his time, up 6 positions into P14. But big contact at the start there. That is always the potential that can happen in these reverse grid races with drivers of varying abilities, but just all got a bit too tight there in the faster car here. Now let's see how essential the toe is and how effective it is, as Mike Stoner is continuing to pull out a lead here. Is a great move down the inside of Andrew Sexton. What a move from him on in the hairpin as he's into P4, as Frick is eyeing up a move here, but he also has Terry Titus close behind as they head through the chicane. You can see the speed difference compared to the F4 in the first race. There's a big lock up there from Tom Jenkinson in P2, as now he has Alex Smith side by side eyeing up through the chicane. Is he going to back off, as we've got the 4 behind very close, but Alex Smith just biding his time as Tom Jenkinson went very slow there, or very wide, but because of the nature of the corner was able to get a good exit with the late apex. Or maybe potentially it was Mike Stoner who had the lock up, but you can see there Tom just slightly hits the inside apex, and because of the nature of the curb, he gives up the position. The car just bouncing too much, couldn't get on throttle, and we can see that Alex Smith is now up into P2. A great start from him, as he is now looking to chase down Mike Stoner. The top 3 are separated by less than a second. We have drivers side by side through the chicane there. We can see that Alex Smith, he has got into P1. He's got the toe off of Mike Stoner there into P1, and what a great overtake that was, and a great start this is. Within 2 laps, Alex Smith, after the unfortunate showing in the first race, is now into P1, but we can see the fight for P2 as Tom Jenkinson with the toe is going for the move on the inside of Mike Stoner, and you can see there that Andrew Sexton nearly runs into the back of Mike Stoner, and in a couple of corners Mike Stoner unfortunately has gone from P1 to P3, and he's now going to have to be looking in his mirrors, as Andrew Sexton is going to be lining up the overtake here into the chicane, as he leaves him a bit of room but runs wide, and that's going to leave him vulnerable as they head into this very late apex at turn 9. He's very tight here, but at the moment, Alex Smith from Tom Jenkinson, a 1.4 second lead, a 1.5 second lead. The perfect start here from Alex Smith, as the faster guys in the Platinum class, Stephen Williams, Carl Power, Luke Power in 6th, 7th and 8th, 4 seconds back with 12 laps remaining. Apologies for my maths there. Mental maths not so good when I don't have an Excel spreadsheet in front of me. But we can see here that Terry Titus now looking up Andrew Sexton as he's just lost a bit of time to Mike Stoner, potentially in those hairpins. Remember, this F3 car is a little bit more vulnerable over those sausage curves than the F4 car is. More torque available. But it seems that Mike Stoner has unfortunately left himself vulnerable once again through that chicane. And he's lost position to Andrew Sexton. He's also potentially going to lose position as Terry Titus goes side by side through turn 3. And unfortunately, Mike Stoner, who started on second position here, is now down into P5. And Stephen Williams, Luke and Carl Power close behind. He could be losing even more as Carl Power looks for the overtake on Stephen Williams, but he also looks for the overtake on Mike Stoner. He's so close here. So close as Alex Smith just keeps increasing his lead. 1.8 seconds to Tom Jenkinson as we go on board with Carl Power. He didn't get the overtake done on Stephen Williams, but he did get ahead of Mike Stoner. And unfortunately for Mike Stoner, this has been a couple of laps to forget for him. But he is in silver class. He is still second in silver class with Steve Rubin down in P18. Third place in that class is still a good points haul for him in relation to his category. But Luke, Carl Power is looking to chase down Terry Titus here as they head into this very treacherous, very raised curb that is the turn 14 chicane hairpin, and Carl Power gives a wide berth there, but it's kind of lining up in single file at the moment. But this last chicane seems to be where the faster drivers are. Terry Titus, very well held, gets a massive tank slapper there out of the last corner. I think that set Carl Power out of position as the family members are going side by side through the second corner, and Carl manages to hold on to that position from Luke, but with the slightly tighter line and better exit, Carl Power is going to be vulnerable here to his nephew as Luke is tucked up very close behind. Carl goes defensive on the inside. It's the only thing that he can do right now as Luke has the slight overdrive on him, but is there enough overlap for him to stick it round the inside? And Carl gives up the position smartly to get back on the racing line. And look who is in the rear of your picture here, guys. The red livery of Danny Henney, who's just been biding his time up from 20th position into P8 while these guys have been fighting, and he will be looking ahead to capitalise like he did in the F4 race on those fighting ahead as we go on board with him. This is his view from P8. You can see the top 8, there's not a lot to separate them. Miffy is creating a lead though as Carl goes very wide there and runs out, and you can see the gap close under braking from that tighter line from Danny Henney as he just controls the car that little bit much better than Carl in front. But as they head down into the last hairpin, Smithy is 3.2 seconds ahead of Tom Jenkinson right now as Andrew Sexton is in P3. Stephen Williams 4th, Terry Titus 5th, Luke Power in 6th, Carl Power 7th, Danny Henney in 8th, and Tim Ellis just a little bit behind with his own train forming behind him. James Gill has made a great recovery after being second last at the end of the first lap due to that spin, unfortunately, where he got into an incident and he was turned around. He's back up into P12, so great recovery from him thus far. But on board with Danny Henney right now, he's in the slipstream of Carl Power. Does he have enough under braking? He's got the benefit of the toe ahead as Tom Jenkinson has spun. Tom Jenkinson has spun in the hairpin and provided a free position to those behind him. So they all head up there. Not quite sure what occurred. I think Tom unfortunately has lost that under his own steam. But Danny Henney lined up Carl Power there, but has gained a free position, so he's up into P7 from Tom Jenkinson. Thankfully for Tom, there was a bit of a gap between Danny Henney and Tim Ellis, so he is in P8. Mike Stoner, who unfortunately was in P1 at the start of this race, is now down in P13, but still has a gap ahead. And Terry Tyler's leaving the room there for Carl Power as he gets on that raised curb of that hairpin. We've already seen incidents. You can see the effect that it has unstable in the rear of that car as it settles. Carl Power managing to control that car. Danny Henney not able to capitalise as Terry goes very deep for that hairpin. Carl has to lift. This is going to affect his exit here, and Danny Henney is going to get very close behind Carl Power while Carl is looking to overtake Tero, he's going to have to look on his inside as Danny takes full advantage of that mistake from Tero, as Carl had to lift, unfortunately no fault of his own, and with Danny able to get on throttle a lot earlier than Carl, has capitalised on that and is now up into P6. A shame for Carl there, not much he could do, and Danny now on the rear wing of Tero Tylers, but can Carl return the favour and capitalise on these two potentially going side by side into this hairpin? On board with Danny here, doesn't quite have the overlap on Tero, but is he going to do the cutback? Oh, he did, he makes contact. Carl nearly runs into the back of him. Carl potentially could have taken advantage of that there, but couldn't quite. And look at this, not millimetres separating Danny and Carl here. We saw them come together in the practice sessions. I'm sure they're a little bit more simple when it comes to the race. But Tero there and Danny, not much. Danny just kind of had to slightly lift. Roles reversed in that last chicane where Carl had to lift from Tero's mistake. Danny also had to do the same for Tero, and Carl nearly capitalised but couldn't. But this has just helped Stephen Williams, Luke Power and Andrew Sixton up ahead, because these two drivers you would expect to be on the back of them pretty quickly in this F3 car, but they are very experienced in a big staple of the Missed Apex community, and well, you see the old cohorts come together and really show their experience in this car. So no mistake that time around for Tero Tylers, but Danny is a little bit quicker, tucked up behind here. You can see only a tenth behind Tero. Is he a bit too close though? Has he had to lift? Being too close in this first sector can be a detriment to you, where Carl Power has fallen just a little bit behind. They didn't quite get the best chicane exit as his competitor Danny Henney in the top class. Here we go, round two for Danny Henney on Tero Tylers. Let's see what they can do. Tero goes defensive on the inside. Danny follows him for the toe. Tero moves back over to open up his entry, and Danny gets the move done comfortably into the hairpin there. I think Tero just lifted a little bit there and accepted his fate and realised maybe Danny isn't his fight today. But now he has to think about Carl Power behind. Carl will be thinking about following Danny Henney through and making quick work of Tero, as up front Smithy is improving and increasing his gap over Andrew Sexton, nearly 5 seconds ahead now. So a great second race from him compared to the first race, which was very unfortunate for him, as we're on board with Carl Power through this chicane. Let's see if he's able to close the gap on Tero. We shall see him make a move here. Only a few laps to go, but take too much curb as Tero goes a little bit deep there. A better exit for Carl, but seems to have kind of been neutralised by the straighter exit of Tero. That deep break in there didn't really affect him, but this is where the time's been made. As Tero makes a big locking up the front right there, and we can see that Carl is far enough back to make not really lift off the throttle, but it wasn't the best exit from Carl, and I don't think he's been overly able to capitalise on the mistake there from Tero, but it does seem that he's just biding his time through turn 3 here. The long swooping right-hander, but is he close enough to be able to tow past Tero here down into the turn 5 hairpin? Let's see. Tero's going defensive. Oh, he's not going. Oh, he is going defensive. Looked like he wasn't. Oh, little bit of moving there. Can Carl stick it on the outside? And he does. Tero, I think, just a little bit in two minds there. Do I concede? Do I defend this? And well, Carl, I think in the end, sensible decision. Lets Carl go past, who is a slightly faster driver. And well, there is a comfortable gap between Tero and Tim Ellis behind. And Tero is on for a good top 10 finish here in the gold class and picking up a nice haul of points for his category. So Carl will be looking to catch up to Danny Henney. At the moment, it is Smithy 4 seconds ahead of Andrew Sexton. Smithy's lost just a little bit of time to Andrew Sexton with 6 laps remaining. Of course, this circuit, just a little bit of a wobble here. We've seen it before, drivers lose it on their own. But at the moment, Smithy looks very comfortable out front without having anyone to worry him. Luke Power, apologies, in P3. A much better performance from him. He does have Stephen Williams chasing him down half a second behind. He's looking at the back of Andrew Sexton, though, rather than be looking in his rearview mirrors. But he may be forced to look in his rearview mirrors, though, as Stephen Williams does seem to be going closing that gap down on Luke. Is Luke close enough to get that tow from Andrew in front? I don't quite think he is. 8 tenths back. I think he's just outside the range of that toe, whereas Stephen Williams is definitely within that toe. And in the rear view of your screen there, you can see the red livery of Danny Henny closing down this gap on Stephen Williams. Plenty of laps remaining for him to capitalise here and potentially get a fight for a podium position. He's already up 15 positions into P5. Carl Power also looking to capitalise as well. He's not far behind, but let's stay on board with Luke. He is gaining on Andrew. That gap's come down from 8 tenths to 7 tenths. Not the gains that he would be hoping for, though, especially with Stephen Williams close behind. And this is what we've seen at this circuit, is where drivers have gone for an overtake and not necessarily made it stick and become vulnerable to the cars behind. And you can evidently see the gap from Danny Henny to Stephen Williams closing. That is very visibly closing there. Keep an eye out on the timing tower of that interval between Danny and Stephen Williams, but you can see a few puffs of smoke there from Andrew Sexton as he is feeling the pressure. A couple of lockups from him as he's being chased by Luke Power. Stephen Williams maintains that half a second gap, just pulling out of the toe of Luke Power there, trying to get a bit of clean air, not get too close, of course, to sacrifice any potential exit that he may have through these corners. He's been very good through the turn 3 in the F4 car and this F3 car thus far. But you can see Danny Henny just over a second back from Stephen Williams now. I do expect that, I think, by the end of this lap, to get down to under a second, and then we truly are in for a great finish here, guys. But of course, Danny and Carl, while starting on reverse grid, will be looking at not throwing anything away as Luke Power goes side by side with Andrew Sexton through the chicane there, as Andrew Sexton goes very wide and spins. He spins out of control. Is he going to wipe anyone out? No. Stephen Williams really missed, just minutely missed Andrew Sexton there. I really was expecting there to be fireworks. You can see Stephen Williams in the West McLaren livery flash through your screen there, and that's a real shame for Andrew Sexton, who he was very clean, but that's the risk you run when you try and hold it side by side through the chicane. And unfortunately for Andrew Sexton, he came out worse off and is now down into P10. James Gill, great recovery drive from him, currently up in P9 and could be gaining more positions with Mark Greenhow just up ahead of him. But it is now Luke Power 5 seconds back from Alex Smith. You would think Smithy has got this in the bag, barring a mistake from himself. Just needs a calm, comfortable drive with only 3 laps remaining. But Luke Power, as he has done for the last few laps, needs to keep an eye on his rearview mirrors of Stephen Williams. Danny Henny now under that 1 second range of Stephen Williams. Carl Power also 1.5 back from Carl. All it takes is for Luke and Stephen to go side by side through one hairpin, and Danny and Carl will be right on the back of them. You can also see Tero Tyler's in P6 there. Comfortable position from him and Tim. Tim trying to chase him down, biding his time as well throughout this whole evening. Quite a consistent performance from Tim thus far. Mark Greenhow has been overtaken by James Gill, as James Gill, who was down in 24th position, he was definitely in around the bottom 25, that is for sure, around the 25th position after the first lap, is now up into P8. So a great recovery drive from him, as Andrew Sexton is looking to regain a position from James Gill there, as I'm not entirely sure what happened to Mark Greenhow, but he's just lost a handful of positions and dropped down to 15th place. So unfortunately for Mark, he was going very well, but has lost control of the car. As there's a spinner, as Tero Tylis has lost control at the hairpin here, as he rejoins. Thankfully, there was a gap behind him. Tim Ellis moves up into P6, but Tero has spun it at the hairpin, and that will put him in the grass and the clutches of James Gill, who's being chased down by Andrew Sexton. Let's see if James Gill will be able to catch Tero here and gain another position. What will be another? Oh, it's Tero. What is Tero? Oh, I think Tero might have just taken his eye off the ball there, as he nearly ran into the wall on the start-finish straight. But he is back on the surface now, as James Gill 6 attempts behind Tero, and Tero is going to be needing to look in his rearview mirrors, as he has Andrew Sexton and Daniel Snalterden chasing him down in the closing stages of this race. Luke Power just seems to have gained a tenth or so on Stephen Williams there on the timing tower, and Danny Henny is lost a little bit of time. But this battle right here is getting very close. It's the closest out on circuit at the moment. fighting for all important points in this top 10. We have P7, P8, P9 and P10 of Tero Tylers, James Gill, Andrew Sexton and Daniel Snauterlin here. Tero, who has his tyres may be hurting as he's gone very wide and deep of the very long corner of turn 9. They're going side by side for the chicane. We've seen this end very badly. Oh, there's a bit of a touch there with the front wing of Tero Tylers as James Gill goes by. No intention needed, no intention by any driver there. It's a risky run when you go side by side for the chicane, and thankfully both of them have still survived, and James Gill has importantly got ahead of him as he was being put under pressure by Andrew Sexton, and Tero Tylers thankfully still ongoing, no front wing damage from him it seemed, and he is now having to look behind at Andrew Sexton, who was up in P2. You can see the brakes of Andrew Sexton's car there really light up under the hard braking into that last chicane, as Stephen Williams now 5/10, half a second behind Luke Power. He has been gaining, as was the case with his last lap battle with James Gill in the F4 race. Is potentially about to have the same for P2 for the podium positions again, as he shows his nose. We saw him do that in the F4 race against James Gill. Didn't quite work out for him, and Luke Power is having none of it at the moment. As Andrew Sexton goes side by side with Tero Tylers, with Daniel Snauterlin ready to capitalise here and sneak up the inside, and Tero Tylers could be losing 2 positions in the space of 1 corner, but Tero has the straighter exit on the wider line. Andrew Sexton up into P8, and Tero Tylers slots into P9 there as Daniel Snauterlin doesn't risk going side by side through that chicane. As we mentioned, Tero, with that spin earlier, his tyres might be hurting a little bit. These cars with the tyres, if you spin them, they peak in temperature, and it's quite difficult to get them back down to a reasonable operating window again. But Tero, this battle here, I don't think this is over. With only 1 lap remaining after this, let's see, as James Gill does seem to have P7 solidified here. Stephen Williams still over the back of Luke Power. Danny Henney and Carl Power seem quite comfortable with their P4 and P5s as Smithy crosses the start-finish line for his final lap. Luke has closed the gap on him, but he won't be able to gain that much time on Smithy, barring a mistake in this last lap. But Stephen Williams, we saw him have a go and close up the gap substantially in the F4 race, as previously mentioned, and it seems that he's doing the same here in the F3 race on Luke Power. 3 tenths behind Luke here. He's definitely within the toe. Might not have an opportunity down into this hairpin. Let's see if Luke goes defensive. And Luke doesn't. Luke is comfortable with that. Oh, but he's gone deep. He's looking in his rearview mirrors. He's made the mistake and he's gone deep, and they're side by side. But he has got the straighter exit and been able to get on throttle earlier. They're side by side for the chicane. Does Stephen leave it in? He's got to. We've seen incidences here already with Luke Power, and he goes very wide. He's not able to keep hold of it. And Luke has to concede the position to Stephen Williams. Roles reversed on Andrew Sexton for Luke Power, where he forced Andrew to make the same mistake. He has now done the same. And does he have a slowdown that he has to take here? And could Danny Henney sneak a P3, a podium position at the end of this race? We will see. But Stephen Williams there forcing Luke Power into the mistake, but was started by his lock-up into the turn 5 hairpin for Luke Power. We'll see if he's able to get rid of that slowdown. I can't imagine he wouldn't have got one. But as we head into the last corner, Alex Smith, a race of redemption from him. He had a very good start in the F4, but unfortunately through no fault of his own, got taken out, and he crosses the finish line in P1. Gold class, a commanding performance from him. Stephen Williams in P2 after forcing Luke Power into that last lap mistake in P3. It seems that Luke holds on to that position. Danny Henney, what a drive from him. Up 16 positions in P4. Carl Power likewise into P5s after starting 19th. Tim Ellis in 6th. James Gill, a great recovery from him into P7. And Andrew Sexton there in P8, and Tero Tylers P9, and this was in 10th. Let's grab Smithy for that all-important interview. Smithy, what a drive. A race of redemption after the unfortunate occurrences in the F4, buddy.
Thank you. No, it was pretty tense, that one. Lap 1 was chaos. Taking the lead past Mike Stoner, I knew I had to dive for it because I needed to build that gap so that when people like Luke Power were coming through the field, that I could stay ahead.
Yep, you built up a great gap. You got ahead of the people that you needed to, And with the cars fighting behind, it was a very commanding drive, buddy, and well deserved after the unfortunate, no fault of your own incidents that you got caught up in F4. So, yeah, good race, buddy, and on to the Super Formula.
Yeah, thank you very much. It'll be hard starting from the back in the Super Formula, though.
Experience for you. Well, what a race that was. We've had two cracking races thus far this evening in the F4 and F3. Last lap drama in both races. And yes, what a great performance that was from Smithy after those unfortunate incidents. But let's have a look at those classified results of our first reverse grid of this reverse grid race this evening. Apologies. Alex Smith in P1, as we just interviewed there. Great drive from him. Stephen Williams forcing Luke Power into that mistake in P2. Luke Power P3. Danny Henney P4. Carl Power 5th. Tim Ellis 6th. James Gill, great recovery drive from him in P7 after that first lap incident. Andrew Sexton held off Daniel Snowden in P9. And apologies, it seems, unfortunately, but for Tero, just struggling with his tyres there at the end, did get overtaken by Daniel Snowden in P9. Spanners, a good race from him, although we didn't see much of him in P11. Steve Rubens in 12th. Mark Greenhow, 13th. Unfortunate for him after his mistake that he made in the middle of the race. Colin Ward in 14th. Trumpets, better performance from him after starting down the back of the grid in 15th. Sean Bennett, 16th. Mike Stoner, 17th, falling down the grid after what was a great start from him. John Cox in 19th. Daniel Cook, 20th, will be on reverse grid pole for the last race of the season in the Super Formula. Nick Alexander in 21st. Alexandros, 22nd, after that first lap incident running in the gravel. Jose in 23rd. Rich Malden in 24th. Tom Jenkinson, 25th. Ivan in 26th. And Alex Dobertsberger in 27th. Next race up is the Super Formula car, the most powerful car on offer in the Missed Apex Championship, our last race of this evening. If the first two races are anything to go by, we're in for a cracker. We'll be back shortly.